Let's go to the sixth example. Here we are going to learn about emotion and tone and how it is going to affect the output. So what we are trying to learn here is controlling tone and emotion through word choices. So the prompt what we are going to ask is illustrate a Cavalier Spaniel gazing lovingly at its owner in soft pastel tones. There are quite a lot of elements here. One, gazing lovingly. Then we are adding another element at its owner and in soft pastel tones. A lot of element here, a lot of emotions here. It's all in depth. It's not obvious, but it is trying to teach us generative AI can understand these emotional connections and soft tone to get us the result what we want. So let's copy this prompt. Let's run it in both. And let's go back to the presentation to see what we are trying to learn here. So what we are trying to learn here is when you incorporate emotions plus tone, and that sets the mood of the image. So you can have only one element. You can say that, hey, gazing lovingly at its owner. But if you add additional tones and elements behind it to make it even more subtler and depth to the image. So we incorporated something called in soft pastel tones. All right, let's go and see the output. Here you can see a spaniel gazing lovingly at its owner. So there is one picture which showcases a it feels like a spaniel is thinking or dreaming about its owner coming back to her in a soft pastel tones. This is quite good. So let's go back to the Copilot Personal. All right, so now we got an image based on what we asked, gazing lovingly at its owner and with some warmth and charm, with some soft pastel tones. So this is quite good. Copy and add it to our collection. Let's go and learn the seventh example. What we are going to learn here is how can you incorporate narrative scenes and visual storytelling within your prompt. In the prompt, we are suggesting that a cavalier puppy chasing butterflies in a blooming lavender field at sunset. A lot of detail. It feels like a line from a book you are reading. So let's see what output we are going to get from the model. I'm going to copy this prompt. Let's put that prompt in both Copilot we've been using so far. And let's go back to the presentation to see what we are learning here. We are learning the narrative setting and composition. So we started off with asking to create a basic image. Now we are adding bit more details like emotion, tones, context and things like that. In this particular example, we are learning about how we can add a narrative setting and composition. If you look at it, it has quite a lot of depth there, even though it is a tiny prompt. We are mentioning about a puppy chasing butterflies in a blooming lavender field. So if you look at it from a deep level, it has so many elements like butterflies, lavender field, and we mentioned things like a sunset. So we are looking for that golden hue as well. Additionally, we are expecting it to be puppy to be cheerful and probably in flight. I don't know, that's what running in my mind. So let's go and see if we got the output. All right, yeah, this is something what I had in my mind, like it's in flight and happy, cheerful, running with some golden hue behind or in some sort of a way. Let's see what Personal Copilot have come up with. This is quite good too. The other one is a bit more vibrant because you can see that it has a lot of depth added to it because of the color palette it chose. And here it is more subtle. I like this version better because this is more subtler and it has all the incorporated element we asked. And the golden sunset hue in the background as well. That's quite good. So I'm going to copy this and let's go and add it to the pack. So the lesson of that last exercise was when you add these narrative elements, this makes the image more vivid and storytelling based. So it has a lot of depth behind these narrative sort of scene setting prompting. Let's go and learn the eighth example. Here we are introducing a new concept called audience and purpose. So what we are going to learn is how you can incorporate images specific to audience and occasions. The prompt what we are going to use is create a greeting card image featuring a Cavalier Spaniel for a child's birthday. First, let's go and run this, then we talk about the elements of it. And let's run it in the Copilot as well. All right, let's go back to the presentation. So here we have introduced a new set of audience and the purpose. The audience here is for a child's birthday. So we clearly specifying that I'm going to give this greeting card image to a child, not to an adult. So that is a constraint and focuses the attention of the model to make something for that clear audience defined here. The second here is the purpose. The purpose here is I want to create a greeting card image. That is the purpose. So I didn't basically ask for a Cavalier Spaniel image, which I can like probably take a printout and give it. There are two things I wanted to do in this. One, I want it in a greeting card format. Second, it should be something adorable which I can give it to a child, not to an adult. So let's go and see what output we have got. All right, so here, because I mentioned it is to give it to a child's birthday, it added some elements like happy birthday elements and some card and some, this particular one I kind of like because I can add some notes to it as well. So that is quite good. So there are a lot of options here. But in the personal one, you can see this is quite adorable too. It's still not finished yet, but this is quite a good looking greeting card which I can already give. But nothing stopping you from asking like, hey, in that greeting card, can you add a element of note at the bottom or on the side so that I can write something about it and things like that? That will incorporate that in the image. So you don't have to take the first copy what you get. All right, so this is quite good. So I'm going to copy this. We're going to follow the same drill. And what did we learn here? We learned aspect like introducing things like a target audience and its intended use. So the model can understand these concepts. Second, we learned about how can you customize the output to suit the recipient and its purpose. So you don't have to take a picture or you don't have to take an output and just customize it yourself. You can tell the customization to the model itself so that the model can do all the bits for you. The next example is we are going to give creative freedom and personalization to the model. So we are not giving any constraint. So far we was giving constraint like telling, hey, can you do that so and so for my style? If you want to explore the freedom of choice of the model itself, you can sometimes give the full control to the model to give you a specific output. What we are going to learn here is encouraging creative freedom and personal artistic styles. So the prompt what we are going to use is we're going to tell, hey, can you go and draw a Cavalier Spaniel in your favorite artistic style reimagined as a storybook character. So I'm not going to tell which artistic style. I want the model, whatever the Copilot is using at the moment, to pick that. So let's go and run this prompt on both the version of Copilot. And let's go back to our pack to learn what we are learning here. So what we are learning here is, like I said before, encouraging the creative freedom. Here you could very well say that, hey, can you create this image in a Monet style or Picasso style? That's adding a constraint. But if it is exactly what you want, you can add that constraint. Sometimes if you are not quite sure in your own mind what sort of an output you want, you can let the model do whatever it can by giving the freedom of choice. Now let's go back and see the output. This is quite funny. So it says that here is a whimsical storybook style illustration of Charles Spaniel reimagined as charming little explorer. This is quite cute. All right, let's see what Copilot have come back with. Oh my god. So this is a charming illustration of Cavalier Spaniel reimagined as a storybook character in a whimsical artistic style. And it is asking, hey, let me know if you like any tweaks or different creative approach. So if you don't like this for some reason, then you can probably ask it to modify it. I'm just going to copy the image, add it to our pack. And what we learned here is it added a personal flair and style variation. So if I had to think of this, I have to be exactly sure what I was thinking in terms of how I want. Does it have to wear a robe? What color of the robe? What is in the background? So This time I gave the creative freedom and control back to the model. So model is coming up with its own imagination. Sometimes it is quite good. But if you are quite sure about what you want, you can exactly tell. But now what I would typically do is I will probably take the first prototype and then I will make my own changes here and there to tweak it. So sometimes it's good to give control or freedom to the model as well. So the lesson what we learned here is it allows the model to explore creative directions. That is quite good. Now let's look into the 10th example. Here we are going to learn about iteration and constraints. We were already using the constraint. Here we are going to use the iteration to refine and evolve the image outputs. So let's look at the prompt. Iterate on your last Cavalier Spaniel illustration and add a dreamy surreal elements. So let's copy the prompt. So what we are practically doing here is we are going to ask Copilot to iterate on this image. So specifically telling copy the prompt on iterate and constraint, go back and add the right prompt. So what I'm telling is iterate on your last image. So I'm going to iterate on the output what we got in the last example and add a dreamy and surreal elements. Let's see what it is going to iterate and come back with. Now let's go back to the pack and see what we are learning here. Iteration, you already know what it means. Iteration means you can go back and forth with the model to change whatever whatever output you got. That is quite good. Second is it allows you to add advanced style constraint. Advanced style means I didn't say that hey go ahead and create iterate and change the robe color to blue or something like that. I'm adding complex elements like added dreamy and surreal elements, things like that. So that is quite complex. So it can model can understand that and put that into the details. So the lesson what we are learning here is you can build on top of your prior output and it pushes the creativity. So you already got an amazing output. If you're happy, you can keep it, start moving on to the next one. But if you want to push and see what you can explore further, then I would encourage you to like iterate on top of it. So now let's go back and see the output. All right, so it took an iteration from the previous one. So the previous one was like a charming little explorer. So it took that. It still retained the explorer. I didn't change the explorer part, but it incorporated other elements which I asked to add as a dreamy and surreal element. So that is now the explorer is in a dreamy world. This is quite good. Oh my god, flying pigs and stuff, and imagining about planets and other stuff. This is quite nice. So that is the iteration. So let's go back and see what the personal copilot have come up with. So it took the same element, it changed the background from a forest to a dreamy illustration. I like the eyes, how the eyes have changed. Now I can clearly see that now looking at the eyes, it's still dreaming or thinking about an imaginary world. So that is quite good. So I'm going to copy the image. Let's add it to our pack.